pants up, and I'm ready. Hello everyone, my name is Helene, and I don't know if you can see it, but today I'm wearing makeup. You know, I did a recent video about a makeup unboxing and I've tried to put it on today. So that means today I'm going to film a crap bunch of videos, and this video is going to be my May wrap-up part 2. You may be wondering, on my thumbnail picture I'm only holding 3 books, but actually these past 2 weeks I have read a crazy amount of books. I have been reading a lot on my Kindle, and I have actually been listening to my very first audiobook, which I will talk about later, but basically I have read so much these past 2 weeks and I better get started. Now, the first book I read was An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This book has received a lot of hype here on BookTube lately. It is a recent release and I decided to read it because I wanted to see if it was as good as people said it was. In my opinion, it was good, but it wasn't extraordinary. It deals with this main character who in the beginning of the book loses her family, basically, and then she decides to be the strong one, and she decides to find the rebels in the city and make them help her find her brother, who is now in prison. Alone, the beginning was heavy with cliches, I think. Like the main character, who is only 16 years old, suddenly loses her family and she decides to take the world on her shoulders and just go for it and try and save everyone. I mean, it's a good start for a book, but I've just read so many books like this, and I know it's a way to start a story, but in my opinion I just didn't really think that was a great start to the story. But the book in itself was great. I loved the world building. The world building in the story is absolutely amazing. It is original, it is interesting, it is intricate, and I just found it interesting to read about it. I did have some problems towards the end as well, because I felt like the author was not going all the way through with her characters, and I would have loved for her to do that. I cannot tell you anything but that, because then I would be spoiling it. But I gave this book 3 stars. It is definitely a good fantasy story, a young adult book, but it's not extraordinary in my eyes. So the next book I finished is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, a classic that a lot of people have been telling me to read, and I owned it, so I did. And it was good. I think maybe I wasn't in the mood for the book when I read it. I mean, I still gave it 4 stars because I could see that this was a great love story, but it lacked something in my eyes. It was a bit too basic and too boring in some places, but at the same time it is mixed with problems in society back in those days, and how you can fall in love with someone who doesn't fit your society or who doesn't fit the way that you live, and also how you can change during your life and how you can go from being a rich girl to a rather poor girl. It has a lot of contrasts in it, and I like that, and I do think that the love story was great, but I hate these kind of love stories that keeps it dragging for 500 pages and then the last 2 pages give you a resolution. I don't like that. I would like for the resolution to come a little bit earlier, but I still gave it 4 stars. Let's see. Okay, next I read The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer. Holy crap, this book was amazing. This was a 5-star book for me right away. This is basically about a group of young people who meet at this summer camp. They decide to stick together and they decide to call themselves The Interestings. Then we follow these people as they grow up in life in New York. It's basically set around New York. And that's it. I think this book is not for everyone, but it was definitely a book for me. This book doesn't have a lot of action. Not a lot is going on. This book is more about the characters and their development in life and their thoughts and their changes, and I loved it. It was so magical. The thing I loved the most about this book is the fact that the characters were so real. I thought about them when I went working out. I thought about them when I was cooking and eating. I just couldn't let them go, and I was so sad that I had to let them go when I finished the book. But definitely check out this book. Maybe it's something for you. I really recommend it, at least. After that, I picked up Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch, which is the 2nd book in the Bastard Gentleman series, I think it's called. I read the first book last year, I loved it, and I also loved the 2nd book. I gave this one 4 stars. I cannot go too much into the plot because it is a sequel, But basically it is about thieves and brilliant plans and plot twists, and who doesn't like that in a book? So definitely worth a read. Also, this book has pirates in it, and I wasn't sure I was going to like that, but I loved it because it was so well done. So definitely 4 stars for me. Afterwards I picked up The Good Luck of Right Now by Matthew Quick. Matthew Quick is an author that has received a lot of praise. He also wrote the Silver Lining Playbook, I think it's called. I haven't read that one, but I did read this one this month, and I liked it. I mean, it was good. This book is about Bart, who lives alone with his mother, and then his mother dies, and this Bart man is actually in his, I think he's in his 30s, the late 30s. So he's a grown-up man, but he does not know how to cope with his mother's death. He does not know how to cope with being alone now in the world and not being very social, not having a lot of friends. So this book is basically about how he deals with this. And he deals with it through writing letters to Richard Gere, the actor. It was a funny way to write a book. I liked the main character, but I also felt like the book was a little bit silly at times, but mixed with some very heavy topics. And yeah, I have some mixed feelings about this book. I liked it, but I also felt like it was a bit silly at times, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then I picked up another physical book, and that is Silver Shadows by Richelle Mead, the 5th book in the Bloodline series, and I was very much disappointed. Now, I cannot go too much into the plot because, as I said, it is the 5th book in the series, but the Bloodline series has been so great. I loved this world, and I also loved being back with Adrian and Sydney. That was the best part about this book. But the rest of it, not so much. I just couldn't deal with the decisions that Adrian made. And I also didn't like the plot. I felt like it was very one-dimensional. You follow one plot throughout all the 400 pages, and it just became a little bit too boring and too dragging in my eyes. This book was not my favorite. I gave it 2 stars. Then I picked up a very well-known and well-loved memoir, and that is Just Kids by Patti Smith. This book was written by Patti Smith herself, and as I said, it is a memoir, so I love memoirs. I used to read a lot of them back in the days, but somehow I've not read a lot of those books lately. But I wanted to read this one. Now, funny story, I thought that Patti Smith was actually Lily Tomlin. I think that's what she's called, the actor who is also part of the West Wing. And I love Lily Tomlin. I love her. So I decided to pick up this book because I wanted to know more about her. But I quickly realized that Patti Smith is not at all who I thought she was. Patti Smith is a poetess, a writer, an entertainer, an artist, basically, and this book is about her life together with Robert, a very good friend of hers, and they had this very strong relationship together in New York. So I was kind of disappointed when I figured that out, but I still read it because I thought that Patti Smith sounded like an interesting person. I think maybe I once again read a book that I wasn't in the mood for, because I gave it 3 stars, and I know of so many people who love this book and who find it so poetic, and I agree with them. In the beginning I was trapped with the beautiful prose. You can sense that Patti Smith writes poetry, and I was trapped with the magical of her descriptions, and I felt like I knew what she was talking about, even though I haven't been part of this world ever. I have never been an artist, I have never done drugs, but I could feel it through the pages. That magical feeling disappeared during the book. In the end, I felt like I didn't really care too much. It was kind of the same thing over and over. I know it's about her life and her memoirs, and it's not about the action, but I felt like she kind of described the same things over and over again. And yeah, so in the end I gave it 3 stars. I am kind of disappointed because I would have loved to love this book. I really wanted to love it, but I just didn't, so 3 stars. Okay. Afterwards I picked up a very light and fluffy book, at least I thought it was, and that is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire, something like that. This book was not at all fluffy. I thought it would read like a good contemporary that would make me feel good, and that's not what it was. This is about two boys, Dante and Aristotle, who meet in their childhood and they have some problems that they are dealing with. However, they meet up and they just become such good friends that they don't want to give each other up. This book is about their friendship and their problems, the way they discover secrets in the universe. And it was just so much more than that, because in the beginning I read it and I was like, yes, this is a great book, this was exactly what I was looking for. And then it turned out that it developed in a totally different direction than what I was thinking it would. And I loved it. I was so much in love with this book, and I loved the prose, the writing style, so beautiful. And by the end of the book I was almost in tears. I couldn't believe it. So I actually gave this book 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of this year so far, and I just really recommend it. It is such a heartwarming story, and I think you should read it. During the past 2 weeks I have been listening to an audiobook, as I was saying in the introduction, and that is Yes Please by Amy Poehler. Now, I don't know what's happening with me, because I thought I knew Amy Poehler, I thought I knew who she was, but it turns out I didn't. These past 2 weeks have been weeks where I have read a lot of books about people I don't know, but that's okay, because now I know them. This book was so much fun. I think you know what I'm talking about if you've read it. I listened to it, and it is Amy Poehler herself who is reading aloud the audiobook, and I loved it. She knows how to use her voice. She knows how to make her book funny. It is funny in itself, but she knows how to make it extra funny, because she knows how to read aloud the jokes. And yeah, I just found it so entertaining. I loved it, and I'm actually going to try and pick up another audiobook, because I quite like listening to a book. So anyway, this book was good. I gave it 4 stars. And that brings me to the very last book I read, and actually we still have about 2-3 days left of May. I'm pre-filming this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to finish other books, and if I am, I will just include it in my next wrap-up. However, the last book I finished is a book that I finished this morning, and that is The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. A book that a lot of people love, and that's why I wanted to read it. I will say I have a frog in my throat. Anyway, this book was good. I feel like I'm a downer this month, because I read so many books that people love, and I just thought they were good. And that's the same case with this one. I didn't love it, I liked it, and I do see that it has an interesting plot. It deals with different points of views about this history of love, which is a book written back in the days. We then follow different people who have some kind of relationship to this book. And it was good, but it wasn't excellent. I gave it 3 stars. I don't know, maybe I missed something. I will say that this book has its hidden gems. It does have its very beautiful sentences and views on life that I loved, and I had to dwell on them for some time. But other than that, I just thought it was average. It was good, it was very entertaining, but it was also kind of confusing. I had a hard time figuring out where we were, who was talking, and I don't know, it just wasn't exactly for me. So I still gave it 3 stars. It is very good, but not my favorite. And that's the end of this wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books I mentioned and what you thought of them, because I always love to discuss books. Happy reading, everyone, and bye bye!